Welcome to the Perceptions Today podcast, where we discuss consciousness in all forms. February 2022, episode 14, Myron Dyal joins us for Guided by Intuition, Roundtable, part 3 of 4. Myron is a mystic, artist, musician, and has visions connected to TLE.
And when they do that, when they say, oh, what you do is just, it's just hallucinations, and of course they don't ever tell you what hallucinations mean. But anyway, it's just this, it's just spiritual, it's just this psychobabble, that you guys do, where's your proof, and blah, 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 blah. And, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the behavior. The proof is in the experiences. The proof is that my life has changed. I'm still alive because of all of these spiritual experiences that I have that I would have been dead years ago without. So they have meaning.
This is an instance of the conversation coming up in the roundtable discussion. Participants knew it was being recorded.
To those people who are open to receive it, and many, many more people are getting ready to do so. And so it's like, I've been told for a very long time, I have a message. I truly do. I saw that at 6 years old, and I had to learn patience, and I'm not 6 years old anymore. I'm going to be hitting my 60th birthday, and they told me it would not be until my older age that then the message is to come. And so all that time, think about, trying to, you see things, you know things. And so the message is coming, and it's time. And this is really why I'm here. There's information that should be shared, experiences to help those who are seeking.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
I definitely say that. Wild Eyes, we're going to come to you, but I have to read out some nice messages. Now, Eileen Meyer, she had to step out, but she says, and I'm having to read through strange glyphs on my screen, that there's so much data streaming in that she wanted to share, that she will do that at another time. And bless you, Myron. So happy you are here, and love to the community. See you next time. She's also got her podcast up, which is Translating Infinity, on the website, all one word, Kyopa Rising, which I will have to spell, KOYOPARISING.com, if you listen to this later. And also, there is Toby Greybeard. He said he had to step out, but thanks again for the conversation that you've been providing, Myron. As you can see in the text there, I'm reading this out because later on people will listen to this. And also, we had Krista DeMaro. She had to step out, but she said thanks to you and everyone else in here. So no, Wild Eyes, sorry for taking our time to get to you, but I knew you would understand.
No problem. Hi, everybody. I'd like to shift gears just a little bit if I can. I do have a question with regarding the 13 Buddhas that I happen to notice in one of your paintings. But there's something that really strikes me, and I find it interesting. I have experienced, I would say, pareidolia for most of my life. And being an artist, there isn't a time where if I looked at a wall, the carpeting, didn't matter. I would see forms, I would see pictures, right. I would see faces.
Right.
So I have a question with regard to, there were a couple of paintings, and one in particular that I noticed. Some of them have like the cave type of look to it with like stripes of colors, but it resembles rocks to me.
Right.
Okay.
That's the mountain.
Okay. So the one that I really, it blew my mind was that a portion of it had the colors in it. And then there was one area to the right or the left, depending on how you look at it. I think it was to the right, where it was dark. And almost like, so, yeah. But I said, and I'm thinking to myself, there's something behind there. So I zoomed in and there was a figure there. And I just wanted to know if that was intentional or am I suffering from it again? And neither.
No. I must confess that I put beings in black areas, and they're almost imperceptible. I know they're there, and when I see them, because remember, I'm making a record of a vision that I had. So, like sometimes I split the canvas into two parts. One is the real world, and the other one is the metaphysical world, and there's a jagged barrier between the two. And sometimes on that other side, on the dark side, I'll put an image, but I will hide it. So I know it's there, and only a few people will catch it. Some people do, a lot of people do it more than I actually thought. When I showed it at the galleries, a lot of people saw that image and would ask me, is that an image, or am I just making, like you said, because, our face, we're designed to look for faces in anything. You just put some blobs of paint on a piece of paper, people will see a face in it, because we're designed for that. But that's my intent, is not to hide things from people, but to put it in the painting so I can re-experience it. Because remember, I'm using these paintings like sand paintings for Indians. In other words, when I'm looking at the painting, it isn't just an image, it's actually an event. And I need to understand what that event meant. Why did I have that vision? What did it mean? And what does it mean now? And I've been working on some stuff that I did back in 1978 when I could barely draw. And I'm still working on it because it has information that I need to go on to the next thing. And so to answer your question more succinctly, yes, I do hide things in dark areas. I have a painting that somebody bought, and it's just a landscape with a big tree in the front, and the tree looks kind of spooky, but it's got a moon and all that. Well, in the very back, right near some rocks, there's a little being standing there, just a shadow. Okay, most people don't ever see it; they think it's a shadow from the rock. Well, it's not. It's Charon standing right there, because that's what I saw when I saw the vision, or I saw it on the mountain. And some people, like in galleries, they'll come up and they'll go, "Is that a person standing there by that rock?" And I'll go, "Yeah, that's a person standing there. You caught it." But I'm not trying to trick anybody. I'm just trying to make it, to put that image in there to let Caroline know that I recognize that she was part of that process. That's the reason I put it in. So yeah,
I understand.
I think maybe you did see something in the movie, because I do hide things in the paintings.
I was compelled to look beyond that dark. If I had taken that thing for granted as just being shadow or an area you just didn't want to deal with, okay, either way. And black is the presence of all colors, so that could have meant anything. Absolutely. In terms of that. Okay, so I was just compelled to go there. And when I zoomed in, I was like, well, what do you know? Because I will do that automatically, whether it's there or not. There are things that I see. I can't,
Yeah, I'll even do a painting like I have a painting of me working in my lab, and there's a door right behind me. Well, that door actually has an image in it, but you can't see that image unless you really look at the door. And most people don't bother. They see this figure, which they like the way the figure looks, and so that's as far as their eyes are going to go. They're not going to look at the background. They're not going to look at that door behind me in my lab. They're just going to look at me in my white shirt and making my sandwich. But right behind it, there's a door, and that door is actually a place. But nobody knows that but me. Now on the car, I write about these and I put them on the back of the paintings. I explain that door is a portal, and And then people start, if they read that, then they kind of look at it and they go, oh yeah, this, yeah, okay, I see it. I see that's a point. All right, I get it. Not just a bullet. So yeah, I do that a lot. So you caught me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It'll just be our little secret, okay?
Yeah, you caught me. I'm sorry. Doggone it, you caught me.
I shall erase the last 10 minutes of conversation and no one will know from the podcast. Mike Frito, Mike Frito said he just has to drop out at the moment, but he says, thanks.
It's late back there. I mean, it's 2:00 here. It's 3, 4, it's about 5 o'clock back there, so he's probably got things to do.
Yeah.
He lives in New York, so.
Yeah, just wanted to leave a message for us saying thanks to everyone and the openness and the love. He said if he can get back in, he will get back in. So we might see him return, which would be great. If there's questions, please raise your hands. Otherwise, I'll throw a question into the arena for people to answer, and we'll put it with Myron.
Can I be greedy?
Can I be greedy?
Okay. There's another one too. I've noticed. Now, I didn't see all of your paintings, so I don't know if this follows through to everything.
You'd have to look at 8,000 images. So
yeah, still wouldn't be done, and we could not have this conversation. I'd still be looking.
Okay.
I know. I've noticed that in some of them, I think they were anomalies, basically ethereal, whatever you want to call them. But a lot of them had eyes. And I could understand the usage of eyes. But at the same time, what I noticed more than anything was that a lot of the human figures that I saw, their eyes were covered.
Yes. Because they're not human figures, they're actually spiritual beings, and the light, their eyes can't handle the light that is on earth here. So they cover their eyes. Now they don't always use glasses. I put that up there, but they do. They have a way of covering their eyes with a little metaphysical filter. But I represent that by putting sunglasses on them because people relate to that, and I relate to it, and some of them you'll notice have red eyes, and so when I was a child I saw red-eyed beings all over the place. I mean, they all have red eyes, and some of them have like dark holes. There's no eyes in them at all. But the hole is like the grays in UFO stuff. They do have eyes. They just don't have pupils the way we do. And I don't think of them as alien. I think of them as part of their consciousness. And so there's those eyes, but the red eyes and the sunglasses are actually for their own protection. So the light here, like. I wasn't going to say this, but I'll say it anyway. I go to this other planet out of body called Zeltron. It's in Orion's belt. I really can't talk too much about it because it's a long story. But the light on that planet is about 50% what it is here. And so any beings that come from Zeltron out of body to visit me here, the light is so bright here they can't deal with it. So they have to put this field over their eyes. Now, it isn't sunglasses, but it's a field that they put over their eyes. Now, that may sound crazy to you. I don't know if this makes any difference. The point is, that's why I paint them that way.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of get the idea of, okay, the light's bothering their eyes for some reason. Even though they might be in a dark bar.
I also noticed designs, through the color from there's swirls going up, that a lot of them do go right to the eye to cover it, no matter what position, whether it's facing to the side. It was interesting.
Well, that if you look at Van Gogh's paintings, you'll notice that almost everything is lines, because people who have epilepsy in their hippocampus, like I do and he did, we have a tendency to do everything with line drawing, with lines. Look at his paintings and you'll see everything is lines. And I kind of do the same thing. There are endless lines that make up these images. I hide them with color, but the fact is that they're all just line drawings. And
could I just pause you, Myron, and ask you, have you moved further away from your microphone? Because Wild Eyes and a few other people are louder than yourself. Oh, that's better.
Okay.
I thought it was me.
Don't worry, I'm keeping an eye on this thing.
I'm glad you said that.
You got your roller skates on and going round backwards and forwards, have you? Away from the microphone, back towards it, and then back away again.
You know, the interesting thing about Van Gogh, who's one of my heroes, is that when he had his seizures, he did not work. And he only painted the real world. He never really painted anything metaphysical. If you look at his art, it's people working, it's objects, it's buildings, it's self-portraits. But they're all done with that same kind of line drawing exercise that a lot of epileptics have. But when I'm having seizures, I'm 180 degrees out from where he was. When I'm having seizures, as soon as I recover, I start working. And I kind of work my way out of what they call post-ictal. That means after the seizure. I work my way out of it by working, by drawing or painting my way out of the thing that is left over after the seizure occurs, and or the image that I see. I want to get it down as soon as I can. It's kind of like making a dream journal. If you dream and you make journal, that kind of thing. Because you'll forget those dreams very quickly if you don't get them written down.
Apart from the visual, are you working out the emotional part of it as well?
Yes, actually. Remember, I was telling you that. I think
it's the whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because remember when I was telling you the story about the demon, I was starting to cry. I get overcome by what I see. I remember one time, my ex-wife and I, we were in Vancouver, and we went to a museum at the university there, because I had a show at the university there in Vancouver. And I just had a few pieces in that show. And so we went into this museum part that had all of this art from the Indians that used to live in that part of the world. And, there was canoes and totems and all kinds of stuff that they carved. And I was so blown away by the images that I told my wife, I said, you're going to have to go find something to do, because I have got to internalize what I'm looking at. This is just running over me. I mean, what they produced, what their shamans produced, spoke just right to my soul, and I had to internalize it. And she said, "Okay, I'll go get a coffee or something." I said, "Yeah, come back in an hour or so." But I've got to sit here and look at these images and become part of them and internalize that image. Well, I do the same thing with my own work. Like in this room where I sit, if you look at my Facebook, I shot a picture of my room here where I do all the work. Well, I also have a downstairs, which I also posted on Facebook. And I looked at the images. Now, some images are autobiographical. Now, those are not spiritual. Like I painted my family, so that doesn't count. But the other ones that are really visionary, I have to work on those images. And sometimes they just tear me down. I just weep because the image is so numinous, so powerful. But all I can do is weep. I can't do anything else, because there's a kind of grief that I don't have it yet. And that's partly my ego and partly my own dealing with the abuse. So the image is helping me deal with those things and cleansing it out, like cleaning out a wound that needs to be cleaned out. And once it's cleaned out, then the image can stand by itself, and then it's just an image, and not just an image, it's an image that I love. And thank God I can make copies of it, so I keep a record of them all. Otherwise, I've sold, hundreds of paintings, but I have a record of all of them. So the same with the sculptures. I mean, I really don't like getting rid of sculptures because those are three-dimensional, and I've got almost 200 of them. So I had a broker who took about 100 of them not very long ago. So anyway, so yeah, there's an emotional pull from the image that when I'm having the image, I feel it in my solar plexus, and it just pulls me. It pulls me to it, and then when I see it later on, finished as a painting, it's still pulling at my solar plexus, and I'm still feeling it, and it's still pulling me into it. So that means I'm not done with that work. I need to keep working on that image. Whatever that image is, good, bad, up, down, right, left, sexual, non-sexual, whatever it is, I have got to keep working on it until it's internalized and I can move on to the next thing. So and when you've got 8,000 images, that's a lot of work.
A lot.
So,
yeah. I can imagine.
I get really tired. And at my age, at 78, I'm getting ready to cross over the river one of these days, and two things were really important. I remember in Hinduism, the first principle in Buddhism, the first principle of Buddhism is pain. That's the first principle of Buddhism. That you don't get that in Christianity, but you get it. Life is suffering. That's the first principle of Buddhism. And boy, that is the truth. Okay. Then you can move on from there, but suffering starts the process. And now in my life, I'm granted it's a little more suffering than the normal person would have. Like my daughter doesn't have any of these particular visions or problems. I have 2 grandchildren, so, but the idea of living images is very real in my hippocampus. In other words, they come when they come. I don't call them. I don't manipulate them. No one. Here's a law. Dyal's law. No one manipulates the unconscious. No one. It comes to you when it wants to, and it leaves when it's ready. I do not control what Karen does, when she comes, when she goes, if she comes as a person or as an ethereal being or whatever form, but I don't have any control over any of it, which means I am not a magician or a sorcerer or any of those kinds of things. I am a receptor. I just receive what is given. And what is given without anything attached to it. Pure love every single time it manifests itself. I mean, I can't put it any other way. I mean, it's just such an amazing, wonderful thing to happen. So when I finally got to the place where I could forgive everybody, everything, my parents, the army, everything, even the coma that put me in this position in the first place, I could finally let it all go, and I actually achieved that. It took me, like I said, 74 years to do it, but it's done. And it was so freeing. I don't have any anger about ex-wives or anything else. It's all gone, okay? And then, of course, letting my ego go, I had to do that some years ago. Because Karen was saying, okay, it's time. When she says it's time, she means we're going to work on this until it's done. Now, it may take 10 years, it may take 2 months, it might take a minute. It really depends on how strong resistance I want to make. But the fact is, we're going to work on it until it's completed. And that's been completed too. I don't have an ego about any of this. I'm not interested in, being a guru or any of that stuff. I'm on a journey, and I celebrate everybody's journey that is on a journey like this. I admire them. I love them. I give them whatever I can give them. I am not looking to be anybody's guru or teacher or anything else. All I'm trying to do is contribute to the eternal part of all of us. And I think that is what humanity needs now more than ever, since the religions are corrupt and turning political, and people are leaving the religions and going to nowhere. They're going into shadow living, into hedonism, and they're leaving their spirituality because they think that was their religion. And people like you are saying to them, no, you don't have to leave your spirituality when you leave your church, or you don't believe in God anymore. You can still have it. It's still alive. It's still real, and you can do it. And that's what a group like this, why it's so important. I can't stress how important this is, because you don't hear it. You won't hear it anywhere else except in little tiny pockets around the universe here. You'll hear it, but not very often. There's some stuff on YouTube and stuff like that. There's a lot of people on YouTube talking about it. But again, it's not, you can tell if they're trying to attract people into a sort of a clique, or whether they're trying to let people be free. And I get the feeling that the people in this group are trying to not only free themselves, but free others to be who they are as well.
I have to say that is totally true. I mean, the way that I've been watching and seeing people come through, connect with others, talk about things. And okay, there's parts of ego which is good, but they're not trying to stand there and become kind of cult leaders or anything like that, because you need a part of ego that goes, okay, I've done that well, that's not bad. And when you go for the point of views of, and just the synchronicity of the people that I've met in the last week or so that have come in. So for example, I mentioned to Wild Eyes and also my co-host for Twitter Spaces, Melissa from Centered Awareness, that I wanted to do a conversational chat about head injuries and perceptual change, because I started to see those connections between people who, even if they had their perceptions changed for, say, a few minutes or a lifetime, there was a connection between how they were receiving information and changed. And then out of like the woodwork, as we have as the expression, people started to pop into areas where I wasn't really meant to be, or I felt there's a twitch in my head that said, oh, I don't really want to be doing this. Oh no, you should be over here. And then I met people like Shadowfox, and then there was other people just turning up. And when they were there was other people, but for certain kind of, again, the twitch in the brain, which I'm now recognizing as being, pushed in a direction, I knew that I had to ask Shadowfox about head injuries. And then she was on board and she was telling me about her history. And the amount of people that are now coming together to have this conversation, it is a form of guidedness, which I don't have someone kind of slapping me in the head and pushing me that way. I just have these kind of events, feelings, or accidents that kind of put me in the right direction. And it's kind of a strange thing, which I think Shadowfox and Wild Eyes will contribute to that kind of strangeness that we suddenly found.
Well, when I was asked about doing this, I watched Tony's broadcast, and I must admit I was upset by it. I mean, Tony and we go back a long way. I'm quoted in his books, in 3 of his books, he quoted my book. And he
in the podcast.
He footnotes the whole thing. But in the broadcast that he did with you, I was really upset by what he said. And then I was watching another broadcast that he did just yesterday or the day before. And he's got his own demons to deal with, and that is convincing the scientific world of his theories, and good luck with that. And because I can't think of a group more closed up than science. I mean, they are really closed up. I mean, they didn't believe Einstein. They didn't believe Louis Pasteur. I mean, they just thought they were idiots until, oops, maybe he's right. Well, anyway, I'm not knocking Tony because I love it. It's not that. It's he and I, became very close because when he read my book that's online, he realized that I had a lot of experiences that back up some of his theories. And the difference between what he's doing and what I am is that he's trying to put this spiritual language into a theory of the universe and how it works. And I think that that's fine. And I think that those kinds of things need to be done. I mean, I listen to quantum physics too, but I also heard I was watching this podcast from this whole group of physicists, and the guy that had won the Nobel Prize said, when he was asked, do you think we're going to figure this out, what dark matter is and all that kind of stuff, he said, I don't think so. He said, I don't think we're smart enough. Now, this is the guy who won the Nobel Prize for quantum mechanics. So if he says, I don't think we're smart enough, I would change the wording just a little bit. And that is, I don't think we're open enough. It's not a smart thing. It's an open thing. Now, I know that they use math, and math is the whole world to them. But they're not open, they're closed. And I think that closure is part of the problem, not part of the solution. And when they do that, when they say, oh, what you do is just, it's just hallucinations. And of course, they don't ever tell you what hallucinations mean. But anyway, it's just this, it's just spirit, it's just this psychobabble, that you guys do. Where's your proof? And blah, 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 blah. And, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the behavior. The proof is in the experiences. The proof is that my life is changed. I'm still alive because of all of these spiritual experiences that I have that I would have been dead years ago without. So they have meaning. And whether that is quantum mechanics, or whether that's spirituality, or whether that is Native Americanism, I don't give a shit what they call it. So in my mind, I think that when you close your mind off from what we've been discussing here and say, well, that's just anecdotal stuff and there's nothing to back it up. Well, I have plenty of examples to back up premonitions that I've had, and I have witnesses for those premonitions, okay? But I'm not here to prove anything to anyone. I'm here to tell you what I've found on my journey. That's what I'm here to do. And I think everybody else that has spoken is here to do the same thing. And I think that as long as that honesty exists, we have a chance. We have just a chance that we can make a difference in the consciousness of the world, which is right now in trouble. Big trouble.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, Shadowfox is something which I think she's going to add to what you were talking about.
Please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with everything you're really saying. And I was thinking when Paul was suggesting, like the synchronicities and so on and so forth. I do recognize, Paul, you're like, what, 5 or 6 hours ahead of where I am, and time-wise. And so it was like, I was getting ready to do a space over on Twitter, and I had gone to sleep, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to put it in dream time and see what I can, what I'm going to speak about or whatever. And I woke up in the morning and I thought, oh, I got it. I'm going to I'll do a meet and greet and, talk about consciousness or, and I was getting ready. I go in there and guess what? Here's Perceptions Today. And it's a meeting. I mean, it's like every single time it's like, I got to see what you're doing so I don't do the same thing. It's like whether you're picking up my dream time or my dream time is picking up your stuff. And I just think it's hilarious because no matter how you look at it, everything that Myron's saying, everything that, Wild Eyes and everyone that's here, there is definitely synchronicity. It's like we're all within that vibrational frequency and we're picking it up, whether we're really intending to or not. So it's kind of like I'm getting ready to do another space and it's like, so it's kind of like I gotta check to make sure you're not doing it. And I mean, really, it's like I'm scratching my head going, okay, wow. So I
actually did use consciousness meet and greet, and that's what she was talking about.
Yes.
She put that up.
Yes. And I actually joined. I'm thinking, okay, now I really got to come up with something different.
You know what's funny about presentations? I've done lots of presentations for the Epilepsy Foundation, like 400 or 500 people, mostly mothers and fathers of children who have epilepsy, and they're desperate for explanations, just desperate. And it's so sad. It's really sad. And a lot of these children are going to die. There's a thing called sudden death epilepsy syndrome, which I have, that could take me out anytime it wants to. And
I think you've moved away from your microphone. Sorry.
Okay.
That's better.
Okay. And so when I'm talking, I never plan what I'm going to talk about. I just get up and start talking. And it is a kind of streaming. It's a kind of cosmic streaming from Charon's, voice to my ear, to my mouth. And it just comes out. And I don't manipulate it. I just try to give what I get. I get the information and I give back the information. So I don't outline it. I don't write it down. In the movie I made, it says in the credits, there's a script. There's no script. They asked me questions and I answered the questions. And that's because they come from the heart. They come from the spiritual center of the chakra, and I always talk that way. Even when I was in business, I would talk that way. I would have a few notes, but not much. And I found that when you talk from the unconscious, from streaming, that the truth of things bypasses your ego. It bypasses who you think you are, and it goes right to whatever it wants to say. And whether you like it or not, it's going to come out. And then you got to deal with it. Because you got people coming up to you, especially at a group like that. You've got mothers and fathers coming up to you and saying, well, what about my son? What about my daughter? What kind of seizures can they have? And blah, 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 blah. And there's nothing more humbling than having to deal with parents that are just going out of their minds with fear because their children are dying right in front of them, having 14 seizures in a day, and science can't stop it. They just can't stop it. But my point wasn't about that. That's another subject. My point was that this energy that we're talking about has a kind of life of its own. And I hate using these words because every time I say a word like life, it has a meaning. But I'm just going to say it anyway. It has a life of its own. And when you're out of the way, then truth comes out of that. And you can't stop it. If you're out of the way, it just comes out. And it goes and finds whatever audience it needs. It's like it searches for an ear or a heart or some part of an injured person and finds that person. And then when it finds it, it infiltrates their mind, their spiritual mind, and it begins to change them. I remember one time I had an opening for a big art show with Caroline's Pantheon, and I won't tell you what that is, but it was a big show of sculptures. And I gave a lecture, and this this young girl who was she had on leather and her hair was she was a punk, and as they call themselves, and I was talking about spirituality because that's what these beings are. And she came up to me. Now, she's a punk. She's not supposed to be interested in that kind of stuff. And she said, "Can I just give you a hug?" I said, "Yeah, sure. You can give me a hug." So and she hugged me again. And she said, "Thank you so much." And I didn't even know what it is that I vouchsafed to her. I had no idea whatever it was. It touched her in a very special way. And she's not supposed to be touched by those stuff. She's supposed to be putting that down. But there's something about the reality of it that can't be denied. I don't care how cynical you are or anything else. It can't be denied once it's presented in a certain kind of way. And that way is truth. You're just talking truth. You're not talking ego. You're not talking things that have to be verified. You're just telling the story of truth. And I swear to God, it affects people. I don't know why it does. It just does. And then they come to me and they want to hug me. They want to shake my hand. They want to kiss my cheek. I mean, whatever it is, whatever manifestation of affection that they want to show, what they're really saying is, I got it. I got it. I have it now. And I just hope to God they don't lose it. That's my only thing. But it's not up to me. It's really up to their journey. But so the same thing, like a group like this group today. I mean, there's a few of us, and and I think what we speak here is truth. And people like to use that word a lot, and it's a word like God. I don't like that word either. But the fact is that we are speaking truth to each other here. And I think that that's really important. And for some reason, people don't do that. They talk doctrine and scriptures and all kinds of stuff, but they don't talk about what their real soul is feeling, or maybe they don't know what they're feeling. It's very possible that they're so disconnected that they don't know because they're so programmed by the media and by this wonderful computer that we have here, that they can't get away from the culture they're living in. And you were saying that the Native Americans lived with the earth, on the earth, by the earth. No wonder it was a pure experience that they were having. And I just think that that's why their experiences are quite remarkable. There's a whole story I could tell you about that, but I really didn't have time. A friend of mine he represented the American Indians to use peyote on the reservation and won the case at the Supreme Court. So the Indians decided to put up a whole shamanistic experience that lasted like 3 or 4 days, and he invited me to come along. There's a whole story about that, but I won't talk about that right now. But the fact of it is that they do live connected to the earth, Mother Earth and Father Sky. And it's a beautiful relationship. It's a Tai Chi, you know, it's just a Tai Chi again. It's just the same thing that the Buddhists believe in. It's a Tai Chi, you know, as above, so below. Because the oldest myth in the world, as above, so below. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Definitely, because I mean, you got sociology like the Victorians and things who were obviously doing things behind closed doors, but on the outside, they were trying to make you semi-rigid in the way that you perform, so you weren't expressing yourself and making yourself vulnerable in a manner. I mean, a prime example of reaching out, we had Eileen Meyer talking about Kundalini last week.
Yeah.
Wild Eyes was there, also Shadowfox was there, and Miro and a few others that have been in the room before. But we were just having the conversation, and I was putting out links to others, you know, private messages, not loads of people, but just ones that I felt for some reason I needed to. One particular woman turned up who I hadn't spoken to for ages, and it must have been just the right time for her to get the right information from Eileen and also Wild Eyes and Shadowfox, because she was hearing music within her field which wasn't part of her culture or anything, and it was causing her distress and not actually thinking about it in a positive nature. And then she started expressing other, what would she call, emotional states, Shadowfox and Wild Eyes. What would you say is the best way to describe this?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there was a real flow with that. So, I mean, absolutely nothing was scripted. And I do know that, especially when a question comes across, I will always ask, and I always tune in to either my guides or their guides, simply to how to be of service. How can I best be of service? And the answers are always there. And sometimes it's just that there'd be somebody in the group that we're picking up, and maybe somebody didn't touch on something, and it was just said in a little different way, but there was definitely a flow, and we each were able to it's like we created this this dance of being in unison. And I think it was just absolutely powerful, what was brought to the table, definitely.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
It was just at the right time. I thought Wild Eyes was going to say something. She was off mute there for a while. Did you want to bring something to it?
No, actually, Shadowfox said it brilliantly. No, the energy was flowing. I know sometimes it kind of sucks the energy out, and I have to pull it back in again because it, you know, and if it's going, I mean, it's fine. But I surely hope that helped. You know, that's the main goal. And that not so much to make it go away, it may never, but at least open up her mind and thinking of ways to deal with it when it comes in and how to look at it.
Oh, definitely on the understanding that she wasn't going crazy is the fear that
Right.
she had. She was on her own. And again, I think I found with others, and again with the talks that I've had, the whole point of what I've realized kind of your existence is to help others through some manner. You'll go through horrible experiences, learn a lot of emotional tools or something that goes along, that you'll suddenly find somebody else who's in distress, but you can actually help them or bring information to them in so many different ways. And it's not here for just your own self-gratification in this kind of existence. That's kind of my viewpoint. You're here to be as good as you can to others and hopefully share, possibly lend an ear or give support or even pass great information or just make somebody laugh now and again when there's technical difficulties. You know, that's that kind of thing, I feel.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If you have a gift, you know, I'm sure that most of you know the parable of the ruler, that the parable that
Okay, I think you're moving away from your microphone again. Then I'm finding it difficult to hear you.
The parable where the ruler gives gifts to three people. He gives 1 coin to one person, and 5 coins to another, and 10 coins to another. And he says, "Now go and bring me back, profit to my investment." And so they go away, and then they come back in a year, and the king asks the first one, "So what did you do with the coin that I gave you?" And the first one says, "Well, I kept the coin safe for you, so I'm giving your gift. I have the coin here for you, and I kept it safe." And he says, "And you, what did you? The one that I gave 5, what did you do?" He said, "Well, you gave me 5, and I'll give you back 10." He said, "Good and faithful servant." And then he said to the last one, the one that I gave 10 talents to, "What did you do?" He said, "I took your 10 talents and gave you 1,000 talents back." And so what does the king do? He takes the one that kept it safe and gives it to the one that did 1,000 talents. So what is that? What does that parable mean? It means that if you're given a gift, you're expected to use it, not to hide it under a rock, And if you don't use it, because it says in the scripture, if you don't use it, what you have will be taken from you and given to somebody else who will use it. And I think there's a really cosmic truth in that scripture, in that story, that is very important. We all have gifts, and if we don't use them, they'll die. They'll go to somebody else that will use them. And for all of us who continue to use our gifts, the gifts just grow and grow and grow. They become 1,000 talents instead of 1 or 5. And I didn't really understand that story when I read it when I was young, but looking back over the years, I completely understand it now. And it's just obeying the principles of giving, which is another very important aspect of spirituality. Giving back, giving to yourself, all that, like forgiveness. There's another big one. There are all these principles that are really important for our cosmic health. And not only that, but what happens after you die, which is a big subject that we do not want to get into right now. But having said that, I just think that I learned that from Christianity. That was a principle that I learned, that if I had a gift, whether it was music, art, or whatever it was, I needed to give it back. And I needed to give it back when it was called for. In other words, not going out and standing on a street corner and yelling and screaming and all that. But when the universe says, go there and speak, like this forum right here. Caroline told me to come here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. I mean, I do podcasts all the time. And she just said to me, do this podcast. And look at all the hassle we had just getting me on board. That shows you how important the negative part of me wanted this to fail. It wanted this not to happen. And that energy has to be respected. You have to know that it's there, and you have to know that you do have an adversary in karma. You do have that adversary. But when Caroline tells me to do something, I'll keep after it until I get there. If it had failed today, I would have come back and tried it again and again and again until we got through. Because once Caroline tells me to do something, I'm going to do it. That's it. Nothing is going to stop me from doing it except death. So I don't want to be over dramatic, but that is the way I feel about things. When I do my art, I do it because Caroline tells me, get up. I know you're tired. I know you had a seizure. Get up and go to your study and start working. And or get up and go to the mountain. Don't work at all. Get up and go to the mountain. So I go to the mountain and meditate all day. I fast. I don't eat. I take water, and that's it. And believe me, following that kind of bliss is so rewarding, and it's so productive, and it always works. You know, I don't care what Anthony says. It always works because it can't not work. If you're following what's true inside of you, it can't fail. It just can't. I'm sorry. I don't care if the science isn't there. I don't care if I can't do the math. All right? The fact is, if you follow it, it's going to happen and it's going to work. And that's what I think people who are trying to put this in a box so they can say, oh, I understand it. I think that they're just misguided. I really do. Because I think this is a little bigger than our little brain. It's not bigger than cosmic consciousness because the whole universe is that. But it's certainly bigger than our little egos and our little destinies, because it gets wiped out. Then you don't worry about life after death. What does it matter? I'm already there. I'm already home. I got no place to go. I'm already home. I don't fear death. Why? I go to Zelcon all the time. I mean, why would I fear death? I don't fear death. I don't need explanations that can't be proved anyway. So, enough of my soapbox. I didn't need to go crazy.
That's okay. You can have a soapbox now and again. It's not a problem. Shadowfox has a question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, there's something, and you had made a mention, it's like when you are impulsed to do something, you pay attention and you do it. And that's, I think, where the difference is, that many of us on this path, we've just learned to trust that. And the thing about where I think when you're looking at, stepping into life, okay, passing or however, transitioning, the one thing, this is something that we have really taught or brought this to our students' attention, is that number one, it's forgiveness, and there is a law. It's a law of forgiveness. Yes. And within that, it's we each throughout our lives get an opportunity to be forgiving or do the forgiving. And it's like it's a practice. It's we have to be able to come to terms with that, because if we can't deal with it here, we're definitely going to get full frontal over there. And this is, yes. And I think that there are aspects to this, and you had really, when you were speaking, you really brought a few of these things up. And it's always a part where you can call in, where it's the cause, effect, and the record. And this is where we can really, when you're asking for that forgiveness, you can always go into a specific issue, for instance. But when you really go down to the cause and the effect and ask for forgiveness, either both giving or getting, and then also the record, because that record is a part of that karma. And that can be really eliminated. If there's no record of it, then therefore it doesn't keep triggering us. And so these are some of those mechanisms that can help move us forward. And I really enjoyed your dialogue today, because you really hit on a lot of points, and I'm very honored to actually have been able to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Karen does too.
That's great. I think you might have moved away from microphone again. Wild Eyes, you have some more input.
Yes, I it's funny just what Shadowfox said, and just to show you that the universe or whoever just wants to make this point very strong. Number 2 in my notes reads, how to concentrate on cause and effect. What's more important? Can you have one without the other? Effect in the road taken forward. No, we didn't call each other.
No, we didn't.
You're not meant to confer when we have these kind of things. You bring your own questions to the table and don't cheat on somebody else.
It's kind of like, well, we didn't ask each other what we're wearing either. I swear.
I have on blue.
So do I. Never mind. That's funny.
To help our research and understanding, leave Perceptions Today's podcast reviews, subscribe to the podcast, along with the other social media accounts, and share. Come and join our live events. That way we can get together and have thoughtful discussions along with advancing our understanding of concepts as we go along.